When it comes to teaching kids and teens about money, practice makes perfect. That's where Greenlight comes in. With a debit card and money app of their own, kids learn to earn, save, spend wisely, and invest. Parents send instant money transfers, create custom chores, and automate allowance, while kids track their spending, set savings goals, and practice money skills they can use today and for life. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.
I'm your host, Annie Bowles, and this is News du Jour. Welcome to News du Jour. You may be wondering, why am I, Annie Bowles, here hosting this podcast? I usually start by telling people I'm a political baby. You see, my parents met working on Capitol Hill. By the time I was 2, I had been in my first political commercial and even got lost crawling around the West Wing. Don't worry, Al Gore found me. My family then moved abroad when I was 9, and I attended an international school in Brussels with kids from all over the world. And it is this type of global perspective that I also bring to our show. I graduated from American University in DC after studying political science and art history, as well as interning on both sides of Capitol Hill. I even interned down the hall from where my parents met. I'm now pursuing a professional certificate in journalism at NYU in conjunction with Rolling Stone magazine. I guess I was always that friend in the group who cared deeply about not just what was going on politically, but also globally. I often kept my own friends informed through high school and into young adulthood, so I guess I've always done a version of this show. I'm genuinely passionate about following the news, and I'm here to break it down for you guys every weekday. We always strive to be a calmer space to get your news. Or, as one listener put it, like getting your news from a well-informed bestie. I'm so glad you're here. Okay, guys, so right as I was saying, hey, we only take breaks for major bank holidays. We had a serious series of technical difficulties over the past 2 days, so I really appreciate you guys hanging in there for the gap in our coverage. We're fully back at it, and I'm ready to catch you guys up today before the weekend. Let's jump into the news. So first and foremost, I wanted to update you guys on the bill that we have been following. So unfortunately, this legislation has hit some roadblocks. There's been infighting among House and Senate Republicans here in Oklahoma. It's to do with taxes, nothing to do with our bill, but that fighting is preventing our bill from hitting the floor for a vote until later notice. That said, there's still tons that we can be doing in the meantime, prepping for this vote. I'm going to be linking something in our show notes called a U-Join. It is basically where you send an email to Oklahoma House reps in a matter of seconds. It's all filled out for you. It's all linked up to send for you. There's even a script that auto-populates so that you guys have an option of what to say if you're blinking, but you can also tweak it to your liking. If you are a domestic abuse survivor yourself or any type of abuse survivor, it could be really meaningful to put that story into the email reaching out to some house reps. So if you guys are interested, again, that will be linked in our show notes. And of course, the most important thing you can be doing is letting them know that we would like them to vote yes on Senate Bill 1470. And you can call whether you live here in Oklahoma or not. You can email whether you live here in Oklahoma or not. If you'd like more information on our bill and exactly what it would do, there's tons of info and resources linked in the petition in our show notes. And of course, the past, I think 3 or 4 bonus episodes have been on the subject of Senate Bill 1470 and criminalized survivorship. I would say the best place to start is with Colleen McCarty's episode because it goes over really like the legislation, touches on a survivor story or two. But really, it's going to lay the groundwork for what this bill will actually do. So definitely check that one out. And then the other ones are more like specific stories of survivors. So those ones are a bit juicier to listen to, you know, just in terms of like the content. The one with Colleen is a little more dry because it's about the bill, but it'll get you the information you need. And then those survivor stories can show you exactly why we need this bill to pass. So thank you guys, as always, for your support on this bipartisan effort. And now, without further ado, we're going to start today's episode with a ton of updates to do with the Middle East generally, but especially Israel and Gaza. And then we're going to talk about the earthquake in Taiwan. Let's jump in. As always with these stories, I have to issue a content warning. This story involves war. So by now, word may have reached you guys, but an Israeli airstrike killed 7 foreign aid workers from the group called World Central Kitchen, who have now had to suspend their activities in Gaza after losing so many team members. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu did acknowledge these deaths, saying that Israel did hit innocent people unintentionally with that airstrike. But honestly, this is nothing new in this war. This is definitely a trend. You know, tens of thousands of civilians have already lost their lives. It's just this was an instance where they were aid workers, they were foreigners. So that's why it's making more news headlines. Of the 7 who died, 1 was Polish, 1 was Australian, 1 was an American-Canadian dual national, 1 was Palestinian, and 3 others were British nationals. The bodies of the 6 aid workers who were foreign are being transported back to their home countries via Egypt. World Central Kitchen was actually founded by a celebrity chef, Jose Andres, and he was coordinating with the U.S. and many other countries around the world in order to enable further aid to enter Gaza and feed the hundreds of thousands of people currently starving there, almost half of whom are children. Jose Andres actually penned a really passionate opinion piece for the New York Times on why food isn't getting into Gaza and what is happening there in terms of the food. I haven't had a chance to read the whole thing yet, but it is an interesting look into his perspective on this conflict. And next up in our updates, Israel to shut down Al Jazeera. So, according to the BBC, the Israeli parliament just passed a law that would pave the way for them to be able to ban Al Jazeera, a major Qatari news outlet, from operating in Israel. Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has already come out saying he's banning the news outlet, calling it a, quote, terrorist channel, end quote. It's kind of crazy, too, because Qatar has been pivotal, essential, really, in the peace talks between Hamas and Israel. And they were responsible for helping get 105 hostages safely home to their loved ones, which was a momentous occasion. You would think that Israel would want to continue fostering a positive relationship with Qatar, given this dynamic, but it comes back to disagreements about the facts, which, this entire conflict is riddled with, unfortunately. In every single story, there is a different version told on both sides, and with Al Jazeera representing the Arab world, they tend to tell the story in a way that conflicts with Israel's version of events. But at the end of the day, if you have nothing to hide, you shouldn't have to suppress the press. And it definitely sends up red flags anytime a nation tries to do this. The White House, too, is concerned about this move. The press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre, said, quote, "If this is true, a move like this is concerning," end quote. I know that doesn't sound particularly harsh, but it's actually her job to keep everyone calm and deliver a sense of strength and stability. So this is about as strong of language as you might get from an unscripted moment with the press secretary. So this move is definitely one that the White House will be watching along with the rest of the world. And that brings me to Iran. So it looks like Israel has hit a location on Monday in Damascus, Syria, where several prominent Iranian military officers were killed. Israel has not claimed responsibility for the attack, but they never really do in these instances where they seem to strike Iran. Iran vowed to retaliate and specifically said that they feel the U.S. is quote unquote answerable due to the U.S. government's support of Israel. There's also squabbling about whether or not the site was hit as an embassy or a consulate or a military building. And that actually is an important distinction internationally. Because if it were an embassy or a consulate, these properties are protected and they're considered to be actually part and parcel of the countries that they represent. An example of this would be if you've ever been trick-or-treating at the embassies in DC, if you go, like if you're underage and you go to the Russian embassy, as long as you're over 18, they can serve you vodka because you're technically on Russian soil at their embassy. So that is how embassies operate worldwide, and they're really sacrosanct. They're not to be attacked under any circumstances, and if they are, it can have like really intense consequences. Israel, though, is insisting that this is not an embassy, but rather a military office of some sort. But again, they haven't even confirmed that they carried out the strike. So it's kind of funny that they are like entering the chat about whether this was an embassy or not, saying it wasn't, but they also aren't saying that they hit it. So, you know, if they didn't hit it, why comment? You know, so it's just a messy situation all around. And that for today sums up our Middle East updates. Let's head over to Taiwan. So 9 people have lost their lives in Taiwan. By now, you guys have already heard that there was a massive earthquake. It was the biggest on the island in 25 years, according to NPR. 9 people lost their lives and over 1,000 people were injured. The earthquake was a 7.4 magnitude and had more than 200 aftershocks, according to the New York Times. Some buildings can be seen like tilted over, you guys. It's actually like such a crazy phenomenon. I've literally never seen anything like this, but it's kind of like they're crushed into the ground. Like if you stood a Coke can up and kind of like squished it halfway into the ground, that's what the buildings look like, but they're kind of like stuck in that position. But back in the 90s, you know, this is a far cry from what they saw the last time an earthquake of this magnitude hit Taiwan. According to NPR, 2,000 people were killed in an earthquake, again, of similar size back in the 90s. So improvements have apparently been made in the infrastructure. Given that Taiwan straddles a fault line, this totally makes sense and is just, you know, literally saving lives. Only 9 people died this time and 2,000 died in the previous one in the 90s. So that is a lot of improvement, and it's something we're going to have to continue to work on as we walk deeper into the climate crisis. Stay safe out there, friends. And for this week, that is the news du jour. Today, I wanted to leave you guys with the quote, "To plant a garden is to believe in tomorrow." If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe on whatever podcast platform you use to listen. A rate and review on that platform or a shout out on social media would mean the world to us and help us to be able to keep creating the news du jour and reach more people who need a calmer space to consume the news. But the best way to support all of our work is to become a patron at www.patreon.com/sugarfree media, and that is also linked in our show notes. You can follow us on social media at newsdujour.podcast on both Instagram and TikTok. You can follow my personal account at It's Annie Bowles on both platforms as well. Any little noises you may hear in the background are my rescue pup. He has a little separation anxiety and always records with me. We appreciate you listening and look forward to telling you about the news again next time on News du Jour.
Broadcasting from
Hey parents, Greenlight is here to take one big thing off your to-do list, teaching your kids about money. With a Greenlight debit card and money app of their own, kids and teens learn to earn, save, and invest. You can send money instantly, set flexible controls, and get real-time notifications of your kids' money activity, set up chores, and put allowance on autopilot to reward them for their hard work. Then learn about the world of money together. Get 1 month free when you sign up at greenlight.com/podcast.